Welcome, everyone. This is the third episode of our podcast, The Unmakeables. Today, we're going to talk about the topic homelessness among students in particular. We have two amazing guests. Welcome, Sadhbh and Cait. And they are going to talk with us about their experience with homelessness and also about discrimination they experienced. Cait is the one that actually experienced homelessness, and Sadhbh is her partner, and she is going to provide us with some insight from a partner perspective. Well, I'm very honored that you are here. My first question to you, Cait, would be, how did you end up in this situation? Can you tell something about that?
So I've been in the Netherlands for like 10 years now, I think. And over the years, I'd say I've been homeless or have had problems with accommodation like multiple times. And each time it's kind of like different scenarios or caused by different situations, but most of the time it's been a lack of available accommodation, like not being able to find anything, or not being able to find anything within like a certain budget, or people not wanting to rent places to you.
Why would they not rent places to you?
Well, in Groningen, when I moved there especially, it wasn't a very international city yet in like 2013. I think it was quite new to be an international student there, and I think it's pretty common now, or common knowledge, there's a lot of kind of like prejudice, I think, against international students renting places, and a lot of like Dutch student houses might not want an international student, or Dutch landlords might not want international students either. But also I think as an international, it's difficult to know how to find accommodation.
Yeah, we have actually a fourth guest. Third guest. Sadhbh and Cait have a dog with them. It's an adorable dog. She's really pretty, but she makes some sounds. So it's not Cait's or mine's or Sadhbh's stomach. That was just the lovely dog.
Just sighing a lot.
Yeah, she's sighing a lot. She's very dramatic. And we're drinking, today we drink weasel poop coffee. That's also very interesting. Cait and Sadhbh took it from Vietnam. But that just as a side note. Yeah, because it's really interesting what you're saying about internationals, because I'm very curious, like, what are the prejudices you encountered? Like, you mentioned something about people maybe not want to take in or rent to internationals. Why would it be?
I think like a variety of reasons. I think for instance, if you're looking for somewhere and it happens to be like a Dutch student house, they might not want to rent it to have you as a housemate because of like a language barrier or a cultural barrier, or some people might not like, I don't know, the way you look or things like that. I think it can be, it really depends. I never really know why places didn't want me, for instance, or why I couldn't find.
They didn't give you a reason?
A lot of the time, no. It's just like, oh, sorry, we found someone else, or oh, sorry, it's not available anymore.
I think also, I understand, like, for example, not wanting to bring someone who doesn't speak Dutch into your circle just because communication is difficult and stuff. I understand that. But I've also heard a lot of times there's certain like nationalities that are discriminated against. Like I've heard a lot of times people don't rent to Greek people, or they explicitly will say like no Polish people or that kind of thing.
Oh my God, really? That's really a thing?
Yeah, I've heard mostly the Greek thing. And I think, well, of course it's kind of baseless, but I've heard like that some landlords think that they won't pay, for example. I've also heard like that they don't rent to Irish people because they think that like Irish people will be really loud and disrespectful and drinking all the time, just like some kind of some silly stereotypes. But I have heard it a lot that certain nationalities are like literally it gets written down like we don't want this nationality to stay with us. Yeah, like especially on like Facebook postings for room and stuff, it would be like Dutch only, no internationals, or like a lot of Dutch landlords, they prefer either Dutch renters or German renters because they have like a reputation of being like very clean, trustworthy, on time.
Yeah. But that's also another thing. Like the ways to find accommodation in the Netherlands, I found were a lot different than like in England, for instance, like finding accommodation on Facebook groups. Like to me, like at the time that was so like strange. I just didn't know that that's how you found accommodation.
No.
So that was really weird to get used to. Like I don't think I was informed about that until like after a couple of years I lived in Groningen.
Oh my God, yeah. So you had to figure it out all on your own.
Yeah, like I had no idea like what I was doing. I didn't even know like the first time I moved houses, I moved like I think it's like a 40-minute walk. And I put all of my stuff in like a shopping cart from the supermarket because I didn't know that like a backfeets was a thing.
No, of course.
I didn't have money to like rent a van. I didn't have any friends. So I was like, the only solution I have is to like get like this shopping trolley that I found like randomly on the street and just like move. I was just like so clueless.
Yeah, I'm laughing about it, but actually it was really sad. Like, how did it make you feel? Like,
I mean, I really didn't know at the time. I was just like, okay, I don't have any friends here because they all left, and now I don't have any like money, so I can't get this, I can't get that. I was like, how else am I supposed to move? I was like, I can't get a taxi, so I was like, okay, we're gonna have to walk. Yeah. So I was just like, okay, shopping trolley. Like, it seemed really logical to me at the time. Yeah. And I thought I was like a genius.
Well, it's actually really creative. I never thought about it, and it's not. Yeah. It doesn't sound that weird because actually card is very, firm.
I mean, it was practical.
Much can fit in it.
But in hindsight, it's a bit crazy.
Yeah. It was crazy. It was like, it was really loud as well. Like in Groningen, there's a lot of like cobble streets.
Oh, yeah.
So like.
Oh, I didn't think about it. Oh my God. Yeah.
Like a lot of people were like staring at me. It was really funny. Yeah. Just thinking back.
Probably embarrassing, no?
I don't think I really cared. I was just like, well, this is my only solution. So.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, if you're, it's your only solution, you're just gonna do it because you have to. There's no other choice. But it's like so strange. Did nobody tell you like, oh, this is how you find another house, or you have to subscribe to this rental company, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like, I moved there in like 2013, and as I said, it's like being an international student wasn't really like very well like established. No. You just kind of like turned up there, and it's like I had no clue how to open like a bank account. And I was living in a student house at the time that was meant for exchange students, so Erasmus students. And most of them knew more than I did because they got information through the Erasmus thing. But other than that, it was really just like you had to kind of like figure it out by yourself or get help from someone else that had been living there that knew something. Yeah. Like I was just really clueless for like a lot of years on many things.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, that must have been so difficult. Like, but when you moved to the Netherlands, you came for the studies? Or, because of the studies.
Yeah, I moved here for my bachelor, yeah.
Okay. And they, what about, before you moved here, did they give you some information in England? Like, oh, this is what you can do, or?
The only information that there was really was just like a list of student houses that you could apply for. And that kind of, I don't know, there's like maybe, I don't know, like 10 in the city, and you apply for them and you get allocated to one of them. Yeah. And then you can stay there for maximum 1 year.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And that's that's kind of the only information that there was really at the time.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
That is so strange. Like then you have to figure it out all on your own, and you're moving to another country, and there's so much you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It was really I was just really clueless. Like I had no idea like what to do or
yeah. And like, how did you end up in a house? Because eventually you found a place. Like, how did that process go?
So I stayed in one of the international student houses for a year, and then I someone told me about the Facebook groups for looking for accommodation, and I was just like desperately like looking for places, replying to a lot of posts, spending ages kind of like crafting these messages to make it seem like, okay, I hope you'll choose me or something.
Yeah.
And then I didn't find anything. And then I think the only viewing I got was to this Dutch like student house. And then I was invited to, what do they call it in Dutch when you get invited to like...
Hospitieravond.
Oh, yeah.
I got invited to one of those things, and it was the most like, it was just awful experience for me, because I was like, I think there was maybe five of us. 5 international students. Everyone else was Dutch, and like everybody else knew what was going on because it's like a Dutch thing, right?
It's really Dutch. I didn't know also, but that's because I was never really into student life.
Yeah.
So I had to learn what it is, but I had no clue. And then you feel so dumb.
Yeah.
Like I felt so dumb that I didn't know.
Yeah, same. Like they told me to come at like this time, and I had no idea that there would even be other people.
No.
So I just kind of like arrived there, and there was like maybe like 15 people, and everybody was like
my God,
kind of
50?
like 15.
Oh my God.
Like,
yeah.
And everybody was just like competing with each other. And I remember just looking at all the other international students that were there. We were just kind of like sat there in silence and just kind of like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And then that kind of like really put me off, and I was just like, oh man. So then I, after that experience, I just made a post, I think, on the Facebook group, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for accommodation. Does anybody want to like join me in searching for like a house together or something? And then, this guy called Bernardo from Brazil answered my message, and then we found a house together, and then got that.
Yeah. And the time of being homeless, was that before or after? And
it was shortly after that, because me and Bernardo, that I met on the Facebook group, we found this really nice house on the outskirts of Groningen.
Okay.
Which we rented with like, I think 2 or 3 other like German students.
Yeah.
And it was super nice for about 3 months. And then the landlord like dropped by one day and told us that he was going bankrupt. So he was going to lose the house.
Oh.
So we had to leave the house within like a month.
In a month?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then we couldn't get our deposits back.
What? No, your deposits.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure. I know. I think there's a lot of scams, especially back then in Groningen. Like we were all international students. We didn't really know.
You probably didn't know what your rights were as tenants
exactly.
either.
Like I think, I think the deposit initially for getting the place might have been 2 or 3 months rent, I think, which my parents had paid for at the time.
But that's a lot.
It's a lot of money. And there was like, I think 5 of us living there at the time.
Yeah.
And he was just like, yeah, sorry, I can't pay you back. You've got to move out, and that's it. And then, and after that, I just had problems with accommodation for like 10 years after that.
10 years?
Yeah, like the whole time.
Holy shit.
This last year with Sadhbh is like the only time I've really had like stable, like guaranteed accommodation since I've been here.
Yeah. That's insane. Like,
yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah. How could this, it's so strange for me because I grew up here. I was born here. Like, there are so many options. Like, how can a country like this not, offer you options or help to find something? What happened there?
I really don't know. Like, I think like Groningen has like, one, it just doesn't have like enough rooms, I think, to house all of the students. Like, especially in the last like 5 years or so, there's been so much talk of, you know, universities taking on more students that they can take, and that's been a problem since like the beginning, I think. And finding accommodation was difficult, but also finding consistent accommodation. Yeah, there's a lot of exchange students that come, so a lot of the accommodations, you might have them, you know, someone might stay there for 3 months then leave. Yeah. Or someone goes on exchange from Groningen to another country and they leave for like 3 or 6 months. And the longest I could ever find accommodation for was like a month, 3 months, 6 months. And like there was at one point, I think I moved maybe like 4 times, like every 3 months. Oh, like I've moved so many times in Groningen. It's like, I can't even count.
But that must have feel like horrible. That must have felt like you have no safe place where you can stay. You're always on the lookout for something new because you're not sure if you have a place to live.
Yeah, it was really stressful for sure. Like finding stuff on time, because I was like studying full time as well, and like every single time I had to move was during like exam period. So that was super stressful.
So that on top of that, during the exam period,
it was just super stressful. Always like really inconvenient. All the accommodation I have was like last moment, it was just really, just kind of like shitty period. Because like at one point I was moving so much every 3 months, I had to really cut down on the amount of possessions that I had, because I was like, okay, I can't move all of my stuff again in like a shopping cart. So I tried to live as like minimally as possible so that I could like fit everything in like a carrier bag or 2. Yeah. So that then if I needed to move, I could just like, you know, do it over like a weekend. Yeah. So then after a while, like having that happen for like so many years, it just just like not having stuff kind of becomes like the norm. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I think it just really messed with how I, what's it called? Like operate.
Yeah.
You know?
I can also imagine
that makes sense.
That it affects your perception of the world. Like, you know, what a home should look like, or what a room should look like. It messes also with what is home, actually, I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, like to me, like a lot of it seemed like so logical, but to other people they were like, what do you do? And it's like, I think there's like one point in one of the places I was living, because a lot of the places I moved into also were kind of like unfurnished. So, you know, you'd have to buy like pillows, blankets, duvets, everything like cutlery. And like a lot of it, like I didn't have the money for all that stuff. So like in one of the places I was living, I just like, it didn't even cross my mind to like go to Hamer and buy like a towel or a bed sheet. I was just like, I don't know. It just made no sense in my mind. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to move in 3 months. I'm not going to buy a duvet, which I'm not going to be able to carry. Yeah. So
what did you sleep with?
Yeah, I was wondering the same.
You know that baby blanket I have?
Oh, yeah. From your mom?
From my mom. Like my mom gave me this blanket when I was like, I don't know, like a kid. And I kept it as like a memento. But then I just kind of used that, which is just like a really thin blanket. Yeah.
I mean, it's like 30 years old.
Yeah, I just used that. For like a very long time.
Like my face is like, you cannot see it, but I'm just...
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems so logical to me, because I was like, okay, well, why am I going to buy something if I have this and this is going to be fine? Yeah.
Or and like, what were you eating from if you didn't have like utensils?
I would just get a lot of stuff from like Mama Minis. Because you could just get it for cheap and it would just be like shit quality. So I'd like get it for €1 and then just leave it behind when I left.
So a thrift shop.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And food wise, like,
food wise, I mean, I ate pretty cheaply, I guess, at the time. I also used to go to like the markets at the end of the day, and then get the stuff that they couldn't sell.
Yeah.
I think it's like not allowed now, but you used to be able to just like pick up all the
Stuff that was
the
fallen?
stuff that was that had fallen, or sometimes you could go and ask the stores like what they didn't sell and then get that. There's also a lot of free cafes in Groningen where they go to like restaurants and the markets as well, and then cook like a big dinner for people for free. So like a lot of that. A lot of like €1 croissants from Albert Heijn.
Yeah.
Like canned tuna, ramen, pasta, just like nothing.
It sounds like you've become very practical, just surviving, but not really living, just surviving in order to to study a bit, but not really living, not really enjoying. Like, what does it do with your mental health?
I don't know. Because at the time, like it just seemed so like I didn't know any different. I was just like, okay, this must be like student life. This is just normal.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I realized how much it affected me until like now, or until I spend a lot of time with other people that kind of have lived a bit more normally.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, I was definitely like low-key, like depressed all the time, like really like highly stressed, like anxious. And I think a lot of kind of like, what's the word? Like trauma logic, I call it, I guess, of operating a certain way because that's how you've experienced it for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then it kind of creates its own kind of logic, like in your mind. It becomes
the new normal.
Yeah, it's just like, it makes sense to you, but it's also like completely non-logical all the time. Like,
And in Sadhbh, you were nodding, like you recognized the things Cait struggles with.
Yeah, I think from what I hear and how I experienced Cait when I first met her was kind of in the sense of like her world was so small, because I know that, like, for example, when she moved from Groningen to Amsterdam, I mean, you had like a backpack and that was everything that you owned. And I know you have some possessions and you kind of spread them out over other people's houses, because you can't move with everything that you owned. But I know that, for example, the first room that you rented in Amsterdam, I mean, you had nothing. You had like a mattress on the floor, which wasn't even yours. I don't even know if the sheets belonged to you. Everything that you had was borrowed or taken from the street, like closets from the street. You would take like a closet and turn it into a shelf, and nothing belonged to you. You just took what was around you. And I don't know, you were happy with it for sure, and you thought your room was so nice, and you had like a plant or two that you put there.
Yeah, I'm very happy with like very little.
Yeah,
like the very first time I moved to Amsterdam, I stayed on a friend's couch for like maybe 3-5 months. And
I forgot.
Yeah, and like paying for that because I just couldn't find anything by myself in Amsterdam. And I was like sleeping on his couch in his room, sharing his bedroom. I didn't have like any sheets.
Nothing.
And just like my backpack kind of like between the space between the wall and the couch. Yeah. And that was it. And I was like, I don't know, I was like super happy. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm paying like 300 a month to live in Amsterdam. And like, just like, yeah. And then the next place. Yeah, so I've said.
No, you had to leave. You had to go back to Groningen because you couldn't find anything in Amsterdam.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Then
you had to go back to up north.
True, I forgot.
Oh man. Oh, that's a food device for the cat again. This happened also in the first episode,
God.
I think. Yeah.
It's so loud.
Yeah, it's really loud. And the dog is also responding now. It's the song like cucaracha, because that's the name of one of the cats. Yeah, it's not a haunted house. I assure you. Rest assured. No, but yeah, that must have been. How was that for you to see how she lived? Because you met like 2.5 years ago, approximately.
Yeah. I was shocked, definitely, because when I first met Cait, I went to her temporary place in Groningen, and you were staying. I think this girl was on holiday or something, or exchange or something, and you were staying in her place, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you really loved it. Like you made it your home, but of course nothing there was yours at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really nice. But then you moved back to Amsterdam and took the first thing that you could find. And it was just a little box, but you were really happy. You had some new roommates and you were excited and whatever. But of course I thought like, it's kind of sad the way that Cait's living and you don't really have anything and you're scavenging a lot for your things. Of course, I think it's great because it's quite sustainable and you're happy with so little, and that's perfect. You don't need much. But, I think when you started coming over to my place and you were just kind of amazed how much space we had, for example, and how we had our own stuff. And I realized when you were at my place, because I had a roommate at the time, you were so uncomfortable taking up any space. Because you really constantly felt like you were imposing. And also at your own place, you were always so quiet because you didn't want to disturb your roommates. I think you really were scared to get kicked out, for example. I think you felt so insecure about taking up room. Like you would never cook if your roommates were around. Like you could only be yourself when you were by yourself. And I think that has a lot to do with just your housing insecurity. But I just remember looking at it and thinking like, it's sad that you feel like you cannot take up some room in a place that you're literally paying for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of kind of like weird, logics like that. Like, I don't know, like... can
you give an example of one thing?
Like, I don't know, like if I was like renting somewhere, I'd always be worried about inconveniencing like the landlord or being a nuisance or being a problem. And I guess I just wanted to stay as small and invisible as possible. It's like, for instance, I don't know, I could have like a broken sink, and instead of like asking the landlord to fix it, I would just like live with it for like 6 months, just because I didn't want to like contact the landlord or just any sort of conflict I would just avoid. But also, weirdly enough, a lot of the places that I ended up renting in Groningen or living in, it was always someone else's space, like subletting someone's space with all of their stuff in it, or staying on someone's couch, or staying in their room. So it just, I guess staying small and quiet was just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. So you basically always walking on eggshells because you're afraid that you might end up like the space you finally had.
Yeah.
But that means that you're in a constant state of stress.
Yeah.
Like you have no safe space, no safe place. Like Sadhbh says, no place to be yourself, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it definitely has like affected me a lot in ways I don't even know necessarily. Yeah. Like when I moved in with Sadhbh into the place we have now, it took me like a really long time to be comfortable there. Like I think for like the first few months I was always really scared, like, okay, we've just signed this 1-year contract, but what if she ends it? What if it doesn't get renewed after a year? Like I was already thinking about in a year's time, like what if the contract doesn't get renewed?
Yeah.
And already like worrying about that.
Yeah, always thinking ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were, now that I think back, you were so stressed all the time in every single place that I've seen you. And for sure, the first few months in our place as well, like I think you couldn't believe that you had a place for yourself. And of course, you were paying an extraordinary amount for the place because it's Amsterdam. And still, you were like shocked. You were like, okay, we're going to get kicked out soon. Like, we can't make noise. Like, we have to not bother anybody. I don't want to bother the landlord and tell her that such and such is broken because I don't want to get kicked out. And you were just amazed to have a place for once, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. You were really worried.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting because now in the last maybe like 6 months or so, you went from having no possessions to having a lot of possessions. And the house is now full of all of your stuff, which is great because, you know, for once you're like, hey, I'm settled and I can have things that I like. And I mean, you just bought like a bunch of tattoo stuff, for example, and like you set up like your tattoo shelf and all these things that you like. And, you know, you invested money into the things that you want to have around you.
Yeah, I think it was like, I kind of gave up on having like possessions and stuff and like even things that were really important to me. Like I used to love reading and having like lots of books around, but I couldn't carry those around. So I just got rid of all my books and I stopped buying books. Yeah. And same with like records. It's like since I was 16, I was collecting like records. And, you know, I'd had like gotten quite a good collection and they were like super important to me. Like I brought from England, from France, like everywhere. And then because I couldn't keep carrying all these things around, I was just like, okay, I'll get rid of my records and then I'll stop buying records. And then eventually I just stopped buying anything for myself, like clothes, CDs, records, like nothing. Like I had nothing, pretty much.
I am wondering now, like, hey, you moved in together. You moved in together. You're building a life. What was the first thing you bought for yourself, and how did it make you feel? Do you remember?
Well, I know the first thing we bought together was a mattress.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, a mattress. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was probably the first mattress you've ever owned, right?
Yeah. All the other mattresses I've had were like found on the street, I think.
My god.
Oh man.
Which is really gross. I've slept on some nasty shit. Like I hate to admit it, but
of course, when you have no choice, you do anything to survive.
Yeah, like I found an IKEA mattress on the side of the road. Hell yeah, this is like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
It's like it's got blood stains on it. Oh well.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is.
At least it's a mattress.
At least it's a mattress. I don't have a sheet, but it's fine. I'll sleep in my clothes.
Yeah.
Well, how did it make you feel to buy such a basic need like a mattress together?
Oh, when we first moved in together, it was so stressful for me because of we had to spend so much money in one go on things that I had never spent money on. So like a mattress, cutlery, plates,
the kitchen table.
Yeah,
that was a big one.
Table, like all of these things. I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. You were stressed. You were like budgeting hard.
Yeah. I was like, why do we need all of this? Like, let's just buy like one plate and like,
oh yes,
like one plate each and like one fork each.
Yeah. You said we don't need a set of cutlery. We just need one mug each, one fork, one knife. We'll just wash them. And I was like, babe, what if we have guests, you know? Yeah. But you never had people come over to your house. That was another thing I remember. Yeah, I was the first person who came to your house ever.
Yeah.
Because
I just never had people in my space ever.
And how was that to let her in? Because that must have been really something, like to let somebody in your space for the first time.
You mean in the place we got together?
Yeah. No. When I visited you in Groningen the first time.
Really stressful. Yeah, really stressful.
Because what were you thinking about? Like, you were stressed, but what was causing the stress?
I think a lot of it was like, how do I appear like a normal functioning person?
Oh yeah. Like
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
I can remember that. You didn't you didn't own anything, so you went out and bought like a nice soap for me to use, like a body wash, because you didn't have that yourself.
Yeah.
So you got like a nice expensive one for me specifically.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
I think also like a candle or something you bought.
Yeah.
To like try and make some nice ambience, you know?
Yeah, nice food I probably bought as well.
Yeah. And of course I didn't know it at the time, but I know that you were extremely stressed and extremely worried about me coming over, because I think you hadn't ever had anybody come over because you were living in some crazy accommodations, and also like, well, I remember some of the places you told me that you were living just weren't really fit for anybody to live in, and you weren't even, remember the place you weren't even supposed to be living at, the office?
Oh yeah.
So you wouldn't have been able to have people over.
Yeah, I was sleeping in an office at one point when I couldn't find accommodation.
Man, in an office?
Yeah, it was like I had just finished my bachelor's.
Yeah.
And I was about to start my master's.
Whoa, wait, you managed during that all to finish your bachelor?
Yep.
That is insane. How? That wow, that's really something else.
I think I really I became really obsessed with my studies. I don't know if it's related to the housing situation. Probably not. I just was really obsessed with my studies. I spent a lot of time in the library. It's all I did. Didn't really have any friends, any social life.
I mean, maybe you spent all your time in the library because it wasn't nice to be at home.
Yeah. Also, it's like I didn't spend much time at home at all. Like I would leave in the morning and just stay out pretty much all day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I managed to finish my studies.
That is amazing. Like, my compliments on that. That is insane. Yeah.
Thanks.
And you were about to start your master's?
Yeah, I was about to start my master's, and I went on like, I don't know, like a 2-3 week vacation with a friend somewhere. And I had accommodation at the time, but then I got back, and then my landlord kicked me out of that place because he found some like German girls that were willing to pay more rent than me.
Are you crazy? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so he kicked me out, and then I just didn't have the money or time to find like any sort of accommodation that I could afford before starting my master's, and I really wanted to do my studies. So the only option I had was I couldn't find like a room to rent, but I found like an office space to rent for super cheap. So I rented this office space in like an old school, which was kind of like, I don't know, kind of like a bit like basement-y. Like it didn't have any windows. But I rented it for like super cheap, like 200 euros or something.
Yeah.
And then I just like stayed there for like, I don't know, like a month or two.
That must have been so depressing, like having no windows, lights.
Yeah,
and,
I think I definitely was a little bit like depressed, and I think it made me like a little bit crazy or something, because like it was an office space. I wasn't supposed to be living there anyway, so I had to leave super early in the morning.
So nobody could see you.
So the security guard couldn't see me. I also had to shower at the university faculty because there wasn't a shower there. I also had to wash my clothes at like my friend's place because there was no like washing machine there. I also didn't have anything to cook my food on, so I had to either eat just like bread, hummus, and or like crisps. I had a lot of crisps. Free cafe.
Yeah,
because I guess you didn't have a fridge or anything, right?
Didn't have a fridge.
No, of course not. No.
But yeah, I got like this rice cooker, and I just used to like cook stuff with that. And yeah,
I'm wondering, like, do other students struggle also with these housing problems like this severe? Do you?
I'm sure they must. I mean, I don't know. I'm not very like social, so I spent a lot of time to myself. Like sometimes I just felt like I was really unlucky because I would talk to a lot of, I don't know, maybe some friends that I made in my class or something, and I forgot what I was talking about.
If other people experience it.
Yeah, they just like were just like, what? You're sleeping in an office? Like, what do you mean you can't find accommodation? Like, it was just so like completely not in their systems. Yeah, in their system that like this could be happening to someone. And like I even remember like going to the like study advisor being like, hey, I don't have accommodation, I'm not sure if I can pass this exam, like is it possible to like, I don't know, postpone this or postpone that, and they just like had no help to offer. And I just don't think it was really a problem that many people knew about, that international or anyone in general could have like problems with accommodation.
Yeah.
But there's been quite some articles in recent years in Groningen about it, but
actually, like invisible homelessness.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's interesting. Like, still, a lot of people have this image of, you know, the same men, mostly men with beards, long hair, sitting at bridges or corners of streets begging for money. But actually, I think a lot of homelessness is still invisible, and the image of what it is, well, has a long way to go. We have a lot more to learn about this, because I'm so amazed that even study advisors didn't manage to help you back in that time. That's insane.
I mean, I even had one of the heads of the department for my master's, like I told her, like, she was like, oh, why aren't you coming to class and stuff? And I was just like, well, I don't have any accommodation. It's really difficult for me to do my work and stuff. And she's like, oh, if you really want to do this master's, you know, you'll find a solution. You'll sleep on a friend's couch for some months, and then you've got to persevere and find a room. Yeah. And she said that? Yeah, she said that. And like in my head, I was just like, you have no idea. Like,
no, exactly.
Like, it's crazy. I can't just persevere and find a room. Like, it's so much more like complicated than that, you know? Like, people are just, I don't know.
It's very ignorant.
Yeah, very ignorant. But also it's like, even if I was to sleep on a friend's couch for like 2 months, that's also an uncomfortable situation, you know?
Yeah. Like, I feel like she didn't think about how something like that will make you feel. Like,
no, not at all.
Yeah.
No.
So inconsiderate. That's crazy.
How many places do you think that you lived in over the last few years?
Let me see. Over 10 easily. Maybe more even. I think there was 1 year, like my first year in Groningen, I think I moved 5 or 6 times.
More than 10 then, for sure.
Yeah, the fact that you
much more than 10.
The fact that you already have to think about it is really sad, because as a student you have, you know, you should have the space to concentrate on your studies and not solely on surviving. That's why I'm also so amazed by you completing your studies, because you had to survive and still you managed to complete it. Like, that's I admire that so much. That's insanely incredible. And besides that, I'm also really like amazed by that you managed to build up a life now with Sadhbh. And what I was wondering when you were talking was also like, how does it nowadays make you feel to buy things for yourself?
I have a real big problem with that, for sure. It's gotten a lot easier in the last year, but like before, like if I wanted to buy something, it was a whole process. Like, I would really need to like force myself. Like, I think the first thing I bought for myself was like a computer. And I hadn't owned a computer in like 10 years. Like, the only things that I used to buy were like the really cheap Chromebooks, which were like 150 euros.
Yeah.
And like they'd last like maybe 2-3 years, then break, then buy a new one. But I always really wanted a computer, but it took me a lot to buy that. Like,
it was interesting. Before any time that you would think about buying something, you would look it up a million times, talk yourself into it, talk yourself out of it. Basically tell yourself that like, you don't need this. It's silly to buy something like this. It's too much money, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But now I feel like you've gone the complete other end of the spectrum, where now I don't want to call it a shopping addiction, but you're impulse buying a lot of things. maybe even spending more than your means. But I think it's probably because you were deprived for so long of buying the basics that now, because I remember you didn't even really have soap before. Now you're like obsessed with soaps. You have like 10 different kinds. You're it's almost like you're compensating for the time where you had nothing.
Yeah, definitely.
I can imagine.
I think now, because I'm so, like, I feel so, I think, like safe and comfy in the place. It's like, we've lived there for like a year and a bit now. Yeah. It's like I feel very like, okay, like this is my place. Like I've gone completely like the other end of the spectrum, and it's like everything that I've wanted and deprived myself of for the last 10 years, I'm like doing everything now.
Now you allow yourself.
Yeah, like but like almost like in excess.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, like video games. It's like I only really play like one video game at the time, but I have like 15 in my library that I've just bought because I was like, oh, I wanted to play this. I want to play this.
And you have a computer now, so you can.
Yeah, and I have a computer, and it's like I bought like speakers, and I want to buy like I just have like this huge list of like stuff that like I've wanted that I haven't had.
Yeah. But that's also difficult. Like I can imagine, how do you find the right balance? Like if you don't know what it is to own stuff, and now you can, so you can buy it. And I can imagine that you're a bit like, it sounds weird, but like a squirrel, like gathering everything for winter to survive.
I really am. It's like the opposite problem now. It's just like I can't stop buying because it's like, I have like a stable income and a stable place, and it's just kind of like, ooh, I can have this now. I want this now.
Yeah, it's becoming a bit like of a hoarder situation.
Yeah. But how do you deal with it? Like, do you talk about it with each other? Like, how it's?
No, it
must be difficult.
I just buy it. Like, I have like an Amazon addiction a little bit. Like, I can't lie.
I think it's still something that we have to find a balance on in future.
But one thing that's been happening for sure, though, is that like because like before, it's like if I wanted something, I knew that I couldn't really have it, so I just wouldn't get it. But now, like I know I can have it, and like I can have it the next day if I want. So there's so many things that I have bought now and just never touched. And spent like hundreds of euros on.
But you definitely have your like street tendencies, because anytime that you see anything on the street that's been thrown out, you want it immediately. Doesn't matter if it's like a broken mirror or if it's a chair that's like completely fucked up, like piss shit on it, like everything. You're like, we should take that. Like we might need it. We could use it, like you dig through trash bags, like everything, like you want everything. But I guess it's because it's what you're used to.
I don't know. Trauma logic, I think.
I think so. I think, well, what you're saying is really important. I think, you have some kind of trauma because, of course, living like that traumatizes you because you don't have time to develop yourself, who you are, what you like completely. You're solely surviving and just doing what you gotta do to complete the studies. So now you finally have space, and what to do with all those space. Like it can also be, give anxiety, I think, because suddenly you have all this space and you can buy stuff. Like, what do you do with that? Because you never learned. How would you know?
One thing I noticed with myself, because I took quite a lot of therapy in the last year, that I had a really difficult time, because like when I moved to the Netherlands, like 2013, I was like 20, I'm 30 now.
So young,
Yeah, like I'm 30 now, but a lot of the things that I deprived myself of in my early 20s, like in my mind, I still feel like that's me and that's what I like, because I haven't explored it for the last decade.
Exactly, yeah.
And I went through this kind of like almost like mourning phase where I realized that I didn't like what I used to like back then. And that was like really difficult for me, because like in my mind, I still want like I don't know, like a nice acoustic guitar, a nice electric guitar, or maybe I still want like, to grow my vinyl collection. But then I kind of realized that that's not me anymore, but like I still want it. But I don't know, it's just this really weird kind of like, I don't know, mourning kind of.
Yeah,
sort of
well,
thing.
it's actually it makes sense because you couldn't experience your adolescent years like everyday people would do, in which they discover a large part of their identity of who they are and what they like. So, and now you suddenly have the time to figure that out because you're not in surviving modus anymore. That is really hard also in a way. It sounds like, oh, finally, well, now I can do what I want, but then the hard part starts because you suddenly have to discover what you want, who
You're like,
you
what
are.
do I like?
I recognize this, but not because of homelessness, but because of my situation at home. And when I finally left home, I was 18 when I left home. I wanted to go away from the situation as fast as I could. And then I thought, well, now I have an apartment for myself. I don't need to share anymore. I have a safe space to be who I am. And then I got addicted to alcohol because I couldn't deal with all those space and not being focused on surviving. I didn't know what to do with all those space. I had no idea. And I had no idea who I was or what I wanted. I just always thought what I knew that would be okay, like just surviving, just doing what my parents taught me or what I learned myself. But then I was in this apartment and I felt this overwhelming loneliness because I didn't know what to do with it. And I had no clue of who I was because for years I was just fleeing in work and studying to not be at home. So, when you told me about this, about the Amazon addiction and buying stuff, I can imagine because suddenly you have the space, so you want to use it, but it's also like
it's like it's like a kid that's never have candy and you put them in a candy store. It's like, holy shit,
and
what
now
do
you
I
can
do?
choose anything.
It's definitely overwhelming in its own way, I think, but
But the nice thing is you have each other, like, you can support each other. And I am curious, like, how do you support her and how do you experience that support?
I think Sadhbh really helped me a lot at the beginning, just to kind of just be a normal human being. Like, listen, we need a mattress. Let's buy a mattress. Or
I think a lot was also reassuring you, like, just because we're hoovering and it's 6 p.m., we're not going to get kicked out.
Yeah.
And just constantly reassuring you, like, we're allowed to make sound and we're allowed to, other people are allowed to know that we live here and we're allowed to receive mail here. And, we don't have to hide. And just a lot of reassuring you that, like, we signed this lease, like, it's ours for the next year and probably longer. And I remember one time, I think our landlord wanted somebody to come survey the entire building. So they own like our floor, they own the house next door, and they own the store next door. And they just wanted to like get a valuation or something. And you, Cait, were like, oh my God, they're going to sell the house. That's why they're valuing it. We're going to need to leave. Like, that's why they're doing it. And it was just like a simple, like, I don't know, administration type of thing. But you immediately were like, worst case scenario, doomsday, we've got to leave. We have to prepare that we're going to get kicked out.
Yeah, I think
But for me, that was so, I was so like, of course not, because I've only had good housing situations. So I'm the total opposite of you.
Yeah, I think you just really helped me see things like more like rationally and like in reality.
And a bit more, I think I gave you the more stable perspective.
Yeah, my go-to is always just like panic, worst case scenario. That's like my, like, kind of like, always have like a plan A and a plan B and a plan C and a plan D and a plan E. It's like, it's never just like, okay, plan A, plan B. Yeah. It's like always just like, okay, worst case, if this doesn't work, then I have this. If this doesn't work, I have this.
Yeah. And I guess also because you've had a lot of situations where maybe the landlord kind of screwed you over, or it was just like really last minute where you had to leave, or, people weren't being transparent with you. So you had to do a lot of like, I guess, planning in advance in case someone screws you over or in case someone tries to get you out. Whereas like now, and for a lot of us, like, you know, landlords are pretty upfront with us. And also because we're in the Netherlands, like they're quite direct. So they tell you like, hey, in a year, we're going to sell the house, for example, you know, whereas I think you had to find things out for yourself and people would be very sneaky with you.
Yeah, like
so you don't understand that consistency, I think.
Yeah, a lot of my like housing situation is kind of ended in panics. Like even before we moved in together, I had to move out because, you know, like one of my roommates decided that like his name was on the contract of the house, and he just randomly decided he wanted to move. And he found a place to move to, and he moved there and then told us last moment, like, oh, by the way, I've moved. So because I've moved, the contract doesn't apply to you guys anymore. So we had to, like, all move out within, like, a month. And then, like,
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and I had to stay with Sadhbh for, like, and her housemate in their small apartment for, like, 3 months or something until we found our place together. But, yeah, that was also last minute.
Yeah, that's insane. Like, I don't hope that this happens to other people. But what would you say to other people that experience the same, or maybe are in that situation today? I don't hope they are, but
I mean, I don't know what to say. But like the only advice I would say, which I wish that I had, would just be kind of like, try and talk to as many people as you can, or try and have some sort of like friends or community. Like I was really like recluse and antisocial because that's just who I am as a person. It's like when I started my bachelor's degree, I didn't talk to anybody in my program for a year. Like I didn't know anyone. I would just go to class, sit at the back of the class would end and leave, and I would go wherever. I did not talk to anybody because I'm just a bit socially awkward and recluse like that. But yeah, I would just say like, try and get some sort of like network or community, and also just like people are very willing to offer help if you need it, you know. It's like I was lucky enough to have some friends who would let me sleep like on their couch or for like months, or on a blow-up bed, or you know, or even pay some of their rent so that I could sleep there, or like cook for them, or like just do little things, and that can like help a lot.
yeah.
So I would say that, and then
But it's hard. It's hard to find an apartment. I think it's especially when you live in a big city. It's so hard. Like even with all the advice in the world, I guess it also just comes down to luck. Like, well, in Amsterdam it comes down to luck and money. But you know, it's so difficult to find something, and sometimes you just have to take like the shittiest options.
Yeah, I mean, I stayed in Groningen, I think, a lot longer than I wanted to, because I literally didn't have the means to move anywhere else. Like, like I might have wanted to move to like Amsterdam, but it's like I didn't have the money or the connections, and it's not like you can just go there in a day to visit an apartment and then come back. You know, it's like 2-3 hours away.
And also, like, you know, the amount of people that want one apartment, it's like 100 people. And it's a race, and, you know, one person gets it and the rest of us are screwed. So,
it's difficult for sure. I don't think it's like the problem of like the individual, you know, like especially in like cities like Groningen and stuff. It's like a whole system of issues that needs to be tackled. Like, you're taking on too many students. The city doesn't have enough accommodations. You know, international students aren't informed enough. Like, it's a whole like
system around
a whole system of problems. You know, it's not like oh, your Facebook page isn't inviting enough, that's why you can't. Like, it's nothing that you're doing personally.
No, I think so too, and I also think that the discrimination issues you mentioned, like that is also insane. I hope the image of that people have of internationals coming here will be better, because even Dutch people, I've met Dutch people that are so like sloppy and so nasty, like, oh, you don't want to know, like that's something individually. So I hope people are willing, to hopefully open their minds and open their hearts to look at the individual that is in front of them and not a nationality, because that's crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
Like it depends on so many individually factors that come into play. Like, I can be noisy, and I'm Dutch, but I talk all the time and I'm not aware of it, or I drop things. So, it's never a guarantee. So I hope that people, open their minds.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I would say that, one of the best tips probably is like find communities, like however small, like, I don't know, you could be queer and you can join a queer community and they probably have housing for you, or I don't know, you like to cook or something, join like a cooking class and maybe you'll find someone. Or there's a lot of like, small niche things that you can like attach yourself to as part of a community, and a lot of the times people are a lot more willing to help you find something then, I think.
I think it's also, it sounds hopeful. There are always people willing to help, but the thing is, if you're socially uncomfortable, awkward, then it's just really hard. And that is really a challenge. So I'm really amazed by what you managed to do and how you managed to pull through. And I think you can be an example for many. And
and you made it. Now you have a nice apartment.
Finally. 10 years in the making.
So for anyone who's listening, there's always hope. But you have to pull through and stay somehow optimistic with no matter what it is, even if it's just 2 plants, that can make your day.
Just roll with the punches.
Well, I want to thank you for being guest in the podcast, and thank you for your openness, and also you, Sai, for your perspective as a partner, because I think that also is really interesting and helpful.
Thank you.
So I'll see you in the next episode, or hear you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.